feels about that, because I believe that with the current regulations, the intent, I believe, was to have the sodding requirement at initial installation unless an exception was granted.
Which I would agree with that. I think if you have an entire subdivision and a developer or a builder tries to go on the cheap by not sodding and would rather seed, unless there's something pretty stiff in the maintenance codes that would require watering and maintenance to get that grass to germinate, I would be concerned about just giving a blanket option to sod or seed. I would rather see, a homeowner have the ability to get an exception, but not an automatic option.
Correct.
I mean, at initial installation, you're already dealing with city staff through the building permit and everything. So, it is not out of the question for someone to request an exception to that. As I said, we have granted some in the past, but it's something that I know our codes administrator was trying to get away from because he's had a lot of problems with when seed's been allowed instead of sod. So I would hesitate to change that one myself unless the planning commission.
I'm just curious in what types of developments that's been a problem.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
I can see how it can become a real issue, like Commissioner Copeland said, that if the developer just decides not to go ahead and he's just going to go ahead and have it all seeded but not take care of it, it ends up becoming dirt.
And I absolutely agree with it, and I don't have a problem with what's written here. I just want to make sure I know what would be considered. If an individual homeowner came in and said, I'm building this property, or building this house, and I'd like to seed my yard, and, okay, so they have to come in and ask for permission to do that. That's not that big of a deal. If it's, in the grand scheme of things, if it protects from a developer that's coming in and, okay, I want to seed, and then they just don't take care of it. I think there's a big difference between one person taking care of their home and wanting to seed rather than sod versus a developer who's got 20 or more homes that they're trying to maintain.
In both circumstances, they're going to have to ask for permission, by the way this is written.
Right, and that's I'm okay with that because I think it's protecting the community and still allowing a homeowner to,
I think the question should be, do we need to have in there during initial installation or not?
I do think that we should add after all lawn and turf areas shall be sodded at initial installation. I think we should add that in there, unless otherwise approved by the community development director.
And I think your option that you were wishing for is in there by the way that reads.
Yeah, I would say that,
I think it is.
More often than not, when a house is built, it's built by someone who's building several at a time. It's not usually the individual homeowner, although that sometimes is the case, but that would be probably a situation that would be considered more readily.
Yeah, and that gets, it's my question that I wrote down was, what parameters are considered. And that's not really what's written here. I like what's written here.
Now, in cases where seed has been allowed, we do often require sod in certain areas, adjacent to the street and, certain areas that are a little bit more important as far as that goes. But again, a larger area like the backyard of individual homeowners, property, that might be something that could be considered then. Again, it would be the community development director's or designee's discretion. It would probably be the codes administrator who would actually be the one designated, my guess.
Other comments or questions? We still need to conduct the public hearing for this item, so before we move forward. Any other questions for staff at this time? If not, we will open the public hearing for amendments to Title 18 zoning. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak regarding this application? And
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
it has been moved by Commissioner Manley and seconded by Commissioner Pop that we close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. This time the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to move forward with this, or any further discussion? Questions for staff? Does there need to be a stipulation, with the changes that we presented tonight?
I don't-
This is kind of a working document, so.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a stipulation so much as perhaps the motion state what you're forwarding. So you're forwarding the amendments, and I don't know if we can just say, like, as stated at the meeting, or how the best way to do that is, but that forwarding the amendments, probably the best way to do it would be forwarding the amendments according to the revised packet, or something along those lines. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of too many things at the same time. And then with the changes specifically that we talked about tonight.
I think you could refer to the public record
Yeah.
in the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I move that we forward the amendments to Title 18, zoning, in addition to the items discussed in the public record, to the City Council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Manley and seconded by Commissioner Copeland that we forward the amendments to Title 18 zoning to the City Council with recommendation of approval, as stated in the public record from this evening. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any other topics or questions for staff this evening?
Just to give you a brief update, we are attempting to move forward with an overhaul of the comprehensive plan in the near future, using the fund balance. Of course, this decision is not official yet. The council will have to make that determination. But the new city administrator, Cheryl, has been working to emphasize the importance of that, and is hopeful that they'll approve that in the near future. Additionally, just to let you know, the community development director position has been added back, and that's currently open. So should hopefully have another planner on staff pretty soon.
I have a question about the signs that we're going to be seeing next month. Since the packet will be coming out Friday or Saturday of that weekend, and it's a very, very large thing to consider. Well, I would like to find out what staff would think about having a small, short work session at maybe the beginning of the meeting that month. That way we could go through it and discuss it, because there's a lot to digest in one weekend. Either that, or we distribute it earlier.
And I think, if you wanted to do a work session before then, that might make sense, but I don't know that staff would have it ready in time for a work session in advance. To do a work session the same day, I think it would make sense just to put it at the end of the agenda and just work through it in detail at that time. The other thing is, because there will be most likely some changes made to it, this is something that we'd want to get the sign code committee back together and have them look at it again. Even if they don't actually get together for another meeting, at least send it out to them for review and comment. This is something that we don't want to just, present it in one meeting and vote on it without a lot of discussion. So I think that, this is something that even though we just continued it to September, it might wind up being October, but maybe the September meeting gives us a chance to work through it some, and then with a public hearing.
That's what I was going to
perhaps
point out.
the sign code committee present as well, and then we could make the final changes for October meeting to adopt.
Also, not getting it out in time does not give the public time to review it as well.
Correct.
especially if we're gonna be conducting a public hearing.
Right. So something like landscaping is not quite as contentious of an issue. Signs, it's a little more important that we make every effort to have people involved in that, so. Were there any other questions about that? Because I did have one other item. One other thing that's come up recently, there was a court ruling last year in a case with Johnson County and Olathe, which the ruling has changed the process for the county as far as rezonings within 1 mile of a county airport. And so this is causing some problems because I just was informed by the county of their process changes about a week ago. The ones, Arvis Bank and Recycle with Integrity, instead of just going a couple weeks after the council meeting to the Board of County Commissioners meeting, they are now going to be required to have a public hearing at the Airport Commission, and then several weeks later going forward to the Board of County Commissioners. The Airport Commission meets the fourth Wednesday of every month, and so as a result, this is going to make it very complex as far as trying to work out if there's some way to do this concurrently. But if we don't do it concurrently, we're looking at perhaps as much as 4 months or longer for rezoning. And this is going to impact Gardner, of course, more than Olathe or Overland Park, who are also dealing with this. But, for the most part, that's the heart of our city, is within a mile of New Century Airport, whereas for them it's more on the outskirts. So this is something that the county planning staff has been, I've been communicating with them about it. But one of the things I wanted to throw out there is because of trying to work out some sort of way for this to go through the process concurrently, if we might need to consider changing our meeting dates, since we're about to adopt a new calendar. I wouldn't want to make that decision before the new director is hired, if that is going to happen in the near future. But something to just kind of think about. I don't know if there's any days or times that, would be a problem, but just, is that something that you would be willing to consider, changing the date to, I don't know, third Thursday or, first Wednesday or whatever?
Whatever.
I'm actually against that. I mean, we've set this up and we've already changed it once. And I know in the future, hopefully, we may have to go back to having 2 meetings a month. And if that's the case, then we could accommodate those requests. That was the other thing I was going to say is, if we did go back to 2 meetings a month, I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. It may not be in the next year or 2 years, but I think that we will see that in the future. Something, though, that we might want to think about for the next year, especially if we do start going through a comprehensive plan overhaul, it's going to be really important for us to work those work sessions back in, as well as with development picking up now with the intermodals under construction. Although it's a little bit slow at this particular moment, it sort of comes in waves, and we have had more applications in the past year than the year before, and that year than the year before that. So I think that, we may need to start looking at that again soon too. So I don't know if you want to look at that for next year, or, but we might want to if we do get into the conference. I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight, but just wanted to sort of throw those out there. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Pop and seconded by Commissioner Manley that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, Mark. Good job.